So, once more, the second meditation, meditation 2. I've been stumbling over this meditation, having some trouble actually getting my thoughts down about it, I think, and I'm not embarrassed or ashamed of that. I guess what I'm trying to do with you is to help you go through, think through, read through, and think through these readings. And it's not always a straight line. And sometimes if you find yourself stumbling and going over things and being dissatisfied with what you think is your understanding of things, that's a good sign. And one of the things it's a sign of is that you're dealing with an exceptionally rich piece of philosophical writing. And I believe that everything we've looked at so far is such a rich philosophical attempt to understand, and there's something really fascinating and also annoying, frustrating about the meditations. So many rich subjects, so many important subjects in philosophy are brought up that sometimes it's just hard to wrap your mind around them. So here we are, once more looking, still mired, you might say, in the second meditation. I want to talk about the last part of it, this infamous discussion of the piece of wax, which he introduces to prove a point. And if you look at the text, I believe that his rationale for talking about this piece of wax is to show an example, by example, to support this claim he's made that we can know things about our minds more clearly and more easily than we can know things about bodies. The things of the mind are more easily grasped and understood and known, more clearly known. So why is he looking at this physical object, this ball of wax? Well, he has a certain conclusion about it, about how exactly we know the wax. And, that's important. But it's also important, just as a general subject, both looking back to Aristotle and looking forward to some of the other thinkers, modern thinkers, that we'll be looking at. And the very interesting discussion of the wax. You should be reminded of Aristotle, because what he's really talking about there is the same general subject as Aristotle was talking about when he developed his theory of substance. We look at the wax, and we feel we have a grasp of what it is. And we know it, he says, seemingly know it by virtue of its characteristics. The ball of wax is a certain hardness, and has a certain odor, and it's a certain shape, and it's a certain color. And then we bring it close to the fire, he says, and he's making this all up, right? But we bring it close to the fire, and all its characteristics change. It changes its shape, it changes its hardness, it changes its odor, it changes its color. So if we knew it through its characteristics, and then all of its characteristics changed, were different from what we originally experienced, then how can we say that it's the same thing, that it's the same piece of wax? Now one could say, well, we can. If we know something only through its characteristics, and all its characteristics change, then there's no basis whatsoever for saying that we're dealing with the same thing. Descartes, like Aristotle, does not want to go in that direction. I mean, he definitely wants to hold on to what is being thought of there as the common sense view of the ordinary objects around us, that is that, yes, they undergo change, but they remain the same. And Aristotle was getting at that when he said in the Metaphysics that it's a characteristic of primary substances that, while admitting contrary qualities, they remain the same substance. They remain the same. Certainly, Descartes wants to say that. But what is it exactly that remains the same? If everything that is we know through the senses, all the characteristics of the wax change, what is that thing we know that remains the same? And here the concept of substance comes up. It's the wax's substance. And here also that word substance, reveals its meaning. That which literally stands under, substands other things, the other things being the characteristics, its scent, its color, its shape, its taste. Those are characteristics of the wax, but underneath them, or standing underneath them, and of course this is a metaphor, but it's a good metaphor, I think, is the substance of the wax, the being of the wax, which is the individual substance that those characteristics attach themselves to. Remember that Aristotle said that substances are primary, and secondary substances or accidents or characteristics or features, the things that are predicated of substances, that they have a kind of a dependent existence. I think Descartes is thinking along the same line. And the startling conclusion that he comes to, I think, is that, as far as the question, how do we know that substance? If it's not something sensible, we know it through the intellect. That is, we only know it because of our mind, not through the substance, not through the senses, which is a rather daring thing to say. But this analysis of the wax, of a typical physical object, into its substance on the one hand and its characteristics, its features, its accidents on the other, is a pretty important move for Descartes, for various reasons in the Meditations, and we'll see why.